What's up, dude? What? What'd you say? Did you say booty cheek balls? What? Black? Turn it off, turn it on. I don't know why it does that. I may even had to plug this. Okay. Let's pull up Reddit. Let me get the stream. Let me get the viewer coming up here. Here we go. Oh, let me turn my sound off. Good to go. Alright, pick up where I was at. Off list time. Get that out of here. Let's get that one in there. What is on there? Is this super glue? All mixed up. Here, where was I? So, even less. Right. Oh. These two. There's a lot of weight on that. Here we go. You can see all the different levels as I build them up. A couple of cards here left. So that's what I'm working with. That's fine. I got a lot of cards left though, so I think I'm gonna start adding some depth. If you guys care, I've got my YouTube stream up, which actually has a better view. No sound on it, but people realistically want to hear me talk. Let's see. Other links. Boom. Actually, just gonna cut this one little pop out here. There's a lot of weight on my rotating table. Keeps popping. All that for that little section up front. But it'll look good. Apparently Pokemon's hot shit right now. I save this art. Alright. Pretty much what you're looking for. Gonna add a bunch more to it, but let's do another level with these bushes and try to get that and that one split out. From it, yeah. So let's go. Sorry if the lighting sucks. Hey, bruh. What's up, bruh? How you doing today? What's he doing? Cutting this art, this Pokemon card into 3D art. You can see some of the stuff here. If you go to my Imgur, there my Pokemon cards are on that, and they're on my Instagram. Oh, thank you, Sharky's Laughter. So this needs to go in front of that, and we got 2 more bushes popped out there. I think the last thing to do is the trees. I might. Yeah, so I'm gonna do. Sup, bro? Have I talked to you before? I think I remember that name. Good. I'm doing good. Thank you for the silver. You check out my other socials and stuff too if you guys want to see more art. You don't have to like, subscribe, any of that shit. But if you want to check out more, it's all here. Close to being done to this, and then I can move on to actually forming the what I would consider the 3D form of it. I don't know if my rotisserie here is going to make it. I'm going to cut this just like that. Oh, thank you for helping spread my art. Thank you very much. It means a lot. In a better view, you can look at my YouTube. It might be laggy though. It's hard to tell how bad the quality is because I'm streaming and trying to watch myself, so I don't know what the hell my internet's doing. Hey, I'm making art. This is my art, is what it is. Cutting this Pokemon card into art. You can check out. You see what I have here on display? My inventory is very limited. Most of it's sold. Or unwanted. My good art sells. The rest of the shit just sits in my Etsy. Might have to take it down if it don't sell here soon. Where's that? Oh. Sure. The hollows don't look as good in 3D art though, so just so you know. When you cut foils like that, they have a tendency to the edges look bad. I'll cut any card up. Somebody needs to find one of them streamers that's ripping up them Pokemon cards, you know? Or what? What are they doing? What are them streamers doing? Cracking packs of Pokemon cards and on stream and stuff? Does anybody really rip it first edition Charizard up yet? Make scenes. Yeah, that'd be funny. Yeah. If you find um a deck, I can do it. You'd have to, I would message me first so that I could see it, as I guess some people see things in cards that I don't. Or they think the art can be 3D. Not looking right. Yeah, just message me on Etsy. Instagram, I answer messages also. Hit or miss everywhere else. Yeah. Oof. Yeah, most of my customers, old Nan Raff, are uh, poker players and the likes, card collectors, like people with literally hundreds and thousands of freaking decks of cards is insane. I can't, what can I say? It looks good. Let's see what I keep hitting the phone. Sorry. What's your favorite? Hey, Odd Man Raff. What's your favorite deck? It's getting deeper. Look at that. He's no longer looking like a flat card, is he? Look at that. It's not even stacked right either. Okay, it's wrong somewhere, but I'm cutting this out. I think I messed up somewhere, but it's that with the tree. So it looks like I messed up a little. One of these cards, no, we're good. Look way off. It's really windy outside. It's looking good. So I need to do that, and I'll be done. And I can round this card out and colorize it. Color the backs and round it out and glue it together. So I need a similar one like that with that cut out. Yep. So just copy that. Just the lighting quality seems poor on this Reddit broadcasting. What's up?
Okay.
You going to bed?
Yep.
Alright. You going to bed too? Oh, what are you doing?
Kissing my blubber.
Ew. What are you doing?
I'm making fun of the guy screaming.
You would be too if you get punched in the face.
No, he was just standing there.
Oh, he won.
There's just blood everywhere.
That's just people's blood. They get hit in the mouth.
You know?
Know what?
Just clock him in the ear.
Why? That don't knock them out. Just
Yeah, but
hurts their ears.
Exactly. Kick him in the balls.
Don't say that word.
Well, what do you want me to say?
Don't say that. You don't say that.
Kick him in the...
You're pretty much cussing, dude. Just stop. Nobody wants to hear that.
Cussing.
Would you say that to Mammal?
Yes, I have.
Don't be saying that to Mammal.
That backfired a little bit.
Huh?
So that backfired, didn't it?
Well, you shouldn't be saying it. I do know.
I'm going to bed. Alright, friend.
Come here. Let's talk to your mother. Should James be using the word balls in context of the I said, would you say that around your mom? You're supposed to be standing here right next to her. Wouldn't use the word balls. I don't even hear no rain at all. No.
I didn't know what to do. I went downstairs and I was just,
Alright, we're done.
I was all over the place. And I didn't believe what had happened. I was just terrified and scared. I thought that she was gone. I thought she had left.
Pathologists, which is not to the same post-mortem. They're very skilled at establishing people's causes of death. Understand that? Did you kill Grace Ryan? You're under arrest for the murder of Grace Ryan on or about September 7th. You understand?
He panicked, and, well, you know the rest from the CCTV. Weird, though, that he says he was panicked, because he looks cool as a cucumber in the video. He said he buried her in the bush. This is like the story of Christopher Garnier, you know, all over again, where, you know, he blames the victim. She asked me to do it, you know. She asked you to do what? Kill her? Because, I mean, they searched his phone records and his phone, search history and all that, and they found different to what he was saying. At 1:30 a.m., so we can assume this is after she was killed, he searched for the Waitakere Ranges. Yeah, he was looking for something should be found there. He also googled hottest fire. After that, he took pictures of what appeared to be her body, followed by looking at porn. Over the next couple of days, he googled her name multiple times to see what was in the news about her. Grace's body was found on the 8th of December, after spotting what looked like freshly dug soil and broken branches just off the road. This was confirmed when Jesse led them there. She had been buried for 6 days by this point. Her body he had essentially forced her body into a suitcase after she had been strangled to death. Bruises were found on her shoulders and arms, like she had been restrained. So she lay there in his apartment all night. The next morning, as he went out, got the suitcases, got the cleaning supplies. She lay in his apartment while he went on another Tinder date. Then he covertly smuggled her out of the building into the rental car, buried her, and then tried to clean up.
To start with a comment on the murder of Grace Ryan, having received a number of media queries about this tragedy. Firstly, I cannot imagine the grief of her family and what they will be experiencing and feeling right now. And my thoughts and prayers are with her father, David, who is in the country, her mother, Gillian, who cannot be here, and her wider family, friends, and loved ones. You know, from the Kiwis I have spoken to, there is this overwhelming sense of hurt and shame that this has happened in our country, a place that prides itself on our hospitality, on our manaakitanga, especially those who are visiting our shores. And so, on behalf of New Zealand, I want to apologise to Grace's family. Your daughter should have been safe here, and she wasn't, and I'm sorry for it. I've advised the family through the police that if there's anything we can do to assist, we are here to help them.
Jesse pled not guilty. The defense would go with what you know they will go with. It was a tragic, you know, accident. Grace, you know, she was into bondage. You know, she asked him to choke her, and it went horribly wrong. They would say, you know, Jesse panicked. You know, he didn't know what to do. He messed up, but he's the real victim here. Come on, yeah. For someone who panicked, he had a pretty unpanicky reaction to her death. He could have, you know, called the emergency services, told them it was an accident, but he didn't. Instead, he, you know, slapped a ham. During the trial, 3 women came forward, telling of their experiences of meeting Jesse on Tinder. He did indeed like the rough stuff, and that's also where a lot of those lies were first heard. He would bullshit them all, and he would assault them too. He would in fact be accused of sexual assault a number of times. The trial for the murder of Grace Mullane began in November 2019. It lasted 3 weeks. After 5 hours of deliberation, Jesse was found guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison, no parole, for a minimum of 17 years. Now, obviously, you know, you saw there the video that Jesse's face was blurred in a lot of the footage. That's because his name, his identity, was only released relatively recently at the end of 2020. Till then, he was just, you know, Grace Mullane's murderer, killer. There was a name suppression order sought successfully by the defense in order to guarantee his right to a fair trial. So his name couldn't be published. In New Zealand, that is. His name was released in December 2020, when it was also revealed he had been convicted of 9 other charges, including rape, sexual assault, sexual violence, threatening to kill, among.
Yeah, I muted. I'm watching YouTube, and I assume people don't want to just hear my YouTube stream or YouTube video that's playing. But if you have any questions, I will answer it. Yeah, it would be funny to make a big scene with Pokemon cards.
Among others. These were against 2 other women. Grace's father, David, he died a month before Jesse would face further convictions. He died from cancer. Jesse appealed his sentence in 2020. The beautiful spirit of Grace is remembered. Grace's family, they set up a foundation, Love Grace, in remembrance and honor of her memory. It helps victims of domestic abuse by asking people to donate handbags filled with items for women in need. And that's
front and back foot.
The end of that one. You know, during the trial, there's quite a bit of controversy, as it seemed like Grace was on trial and her sexual life were on trial rather than, the guy who fucking killed her. But either way, this sack of shit is behind bars for a bit, especially when others came forward saying he was a monster. So there. A psychologist found he'd probably do it again. So if there's like a key or whatever, you should throw it away. Okay. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you. Look after yourselves, please, and I will see you in the next one real soon. Till then, take care. Bye, care.
Bye. Hey, Manta.
I was convinced early on that we were dealing with a serial killer. And if we really know the truth, I believe he's probably killed more people in Oregon than probably anybody else.
For a predator to be in a pen with all of the victims, who knows how many victims he's got.
He had opportunity. When the opportunity presented itself, he took advantage of it.
I don't know why. He claims why. Guess they need a reason.
What are the odds of being a prime suspect in all these murders? It wasn't until later his first victim that I even found out about this woman and that she was still alive. And saying, oh man, she is lucky to be alive.
He's always been a demon in my life, lurking in the back of my head. And I found these words that express it very perfectly. It's called my darkness within. Some of my demons left me. Some are just asleep. A few always travel with me. Others haunt me from the deep. He was one of those. The little ones are charming. They're allowed to stay. The big ones tear me up inside. I just wish they'd go away. I'm sorry.
Same with the stations, only up and back. Farms and truck stops, fireworks stands. I know this road like the back of my
Beginning in the late 1970s, a sinister presence cast a shadow over an isolated part of Central Oregon. It lurked in the background, ignored or unnoticed. Women, often vulnerable or marginalized, were disappearing. It wasn't until decades later that a reckoning finally came. My name is Noelle Crombie, and I'm a staff writer for the Oregonian. Over the past 2 years, I've investigated these crimes and the man who is suspected of committing them. I've read thousands of pages of police reports, traveled halfway across the country, interviewed dozens of witnesses, and spent countless hours driving the road along which the killings took place. This is a complicated story that jumps around in time, so throughout this video series, you'll hear from people who were present at the events they describe, as well as those who investigated them, in some instances, much later. You'll hear tapes of police interviews that were conducted years after some of the events they address. You'll learn information that has never before been made public. These are the stories of the ghosts of Highway 20.
Let me ask you another question in this area. At any time ever, now think of this carefully, okay? Have you gone in and been charged with any sex crime? Are you a suspect in any sexual crime? Yes.
In 1977, Marlene Gabrielson was 20 years old. She lived in the small city of Lebanon along Highway 20 with her husband and their new baby. One night that June, the young couple dropped their daughter off with a friend so they could spend the night at the sisters' rodeo.
I was underage, shouldn't have been drinking, and I got angry about something. Now I can't remember. So stupid that I just walked off. I said, fine, I'm gonna go home.
She asked around for a ride, and eventually a man with a pickup offered to take her home to Lebanon, about 80 miles away.
I thought there was nothing wrong. I'd be safe. It wasn't that far from home. I didn't even look around inside the vehicle. All I knew, it was just a beat-up old truck, and I was going home to my kid.
The man with the old truck was John Arthur Ackroyd. Ackroyd was in his late 20s and lived in Sweet Home. He'd recently returned to the area after getting out of the Army and was working for a local welding company, though within a year he'd be employed by the state as a highway mechanic. That night, he took Marlene west toward Lebanon on Highway 20, a road he knew well.
I noticed that there was no, covers on the doors. There was no handles and no roll you down thing. I sat in the passenger seat and didn't even think. Didn't even faze me that this was a trap.
Highway 20 twists and turns grows as it winds from Sisters to Lebanon, carving its way through mountainsides covered in dense evergreen forest. It's a sleepy stretch of road with little development and few landmarks, and it's dark at night. Exits lead to logging roads or campgrounds and quickly disappear into the brush.
I fell asleep, well, passed out. I woke up with my head banging on the seat and the edge of the outside of the truck door. He had grabbed me by my ankles and just yarded me out of there like I was just a rag dolly. And then he picked me up by the back of my neck and my hair and threw me up against this, like, a little hill. I felt like I was in a hollow because it was, I remember it was beautiful because it was all green and little flowers blooming, little tiny ones. First thing I thought was, how can you be hurt in this kind of beauty?
All I remember about it is this girl needed a ride home. She heard her sister's radio, and she ruined our baby. She pleaded with me to go ahead and take her home so she can check on her baby. I said, okay. She wanted to turn over, and you know, she kept sexually advancing towards me, so you know, I pulled over. We tried to do it. I couldn't get up, and she got all bent out of shape.
He grabbed this knife out of a coffee can. That's where he kept his buck knife, the big knife he held to my throat. He put the knife to my throat and told me I was going to do everything he said. And
All right.
Yes, I will. And he stuck the knife in the ground next to me.
So I'm going to start moving on here. I've got all my pieces cut. Some extra. Sometimes you do a little things a little different. How did you put it together? Is this the right one? It's the right one. Damn marker. There it is. Use these special markers. It's a Faber-Castell warm gray artist pen. Like a expensive magic marker. Oh yeah. Emotional sport meeting. Let me chew this. Alright, I'm gonna do several things to make this 3D effect a little bit bigger. Not looking bad, but I'm going to use a bunch of tools to round out the art, make it more curved. These are clay shaping tools. It depends on the art. It has deep as you want to go. Let me count these for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's 12 of them here. You could get this same effect with maybe 5, but it wouldn't look as detailed. You could actually do a lot more layers to this than what I've done also. I mean, if you want to get crazy with it, you could probably do 20, 30. If you look at my imager, I do have there's a frantic search on there that's took 36, I think 36 to 40 cards. So I'm gonna start off first. I'm gonna, to make this look better, I'm gonna use this marker. This one's really worn out, but it still does the job. You have to trace all your cuts. So don't worry, this stuff does wipe off. Let's see. But can you tell the difference? Looks a little better. And then, so what we can do, to give a more pronounced, see, I cleaned the one off of that, and this marker's not great at all. Somehow the tip got, so can use this, need a little rubber mat or something. Burnishing tool, same thing as the, so what I'll do here is round this out. Take this, round it. What is this? Smooth. You do it too much, you'll ruin the card. But if you look here, I don't know if you can notice the roundness on that, but it's just how it works. And so in this situation, you can take this flower, flip it over. Let's see if I can't use this lighter one. Flip. So in this little flower is what we'll do. This little flower, let's make it a concave, convex, which one is it? I'm going to do the opposite of the bush. So a flower is more like a cup. So I'm going to just cup this flower with that tool go. Let me get that tool out. So this flower, I'm just going to squish down. You can take glue. You can use any glue you want. I'm just not waiting. So there might not be any damn glue in here. It's really low. There we go. A little dab will do ya. It's weird that my phone doesn't show up everything that is being broadcasted on here. So I didn't even know you all couldn't. So I'll just put this on the fire. We need that. The flower positioned. This one's gonna look really freaking good. Dang. So that's what the flowers are gonna look like. That's just one flower. Looks better in person. Put this over. I might have to get a couple Pokemon cards to bring this up, because once I put a case on it, I feel like these flowers are up above where they should be. So I can go ahead and make, I'll just go ahead and make these other ones. I'm gonna go ahead and just use this. Let's see if I can just get this gray to work better. So these will be, this one I won't have to do anything to, because I'm going to glue this flower on top of it. So flower is what I'm going to do something to. OBS. What's up, YouTube? Close. I should charge more for this. It's actually gonna look really good. Glue. Oops. There's your Pokemon flower. Change its blade. Raining outside. Alright. Take a peek at this. OBS. I would focus on something that small. Right. See how much better that looks when you curve it and pretty much do that. I'll just do that with the rest of them. Should have done it all at once. More efficient. More efficient. How's that YouTube stream quality? It's the first time I've ever really streamed anything. It's almost less streaming watching paint dry. This flower's tiny. Boom. There we go. Glue's about empty. Still some in there. Okay. Knife. Flowers are menacing. Flowers are done. So, let's do this card and glue the flowers on. This marker's a lot darker, so I like to use it for the edges. It's still not good, that's annoying. I wonder if that tip will come out. Oh. Yeah, this marker sucks. Ooh, you know what? This make the bush look round. Don't rub too much, you can rip cards. Let's glue the flowers on. Is there scratches there? Is there something in here? Boom. Flowers are done. It's gonna look fucking good. Much better that looks now. Huh? Yeah, shut that. I'm getting kind of cold in here, ain't it? get some more of these markers. Getting worn out. Tips are fucked up. Check this out. Mm-hmm. It's all done. I just gotta get it all colored, and do the obviously the Pikachu. He's not done. I need to put him together. But when I seen this art, I knew it was gonna be good. I'm like, nah, that's good for. It's out like that one's perfect. That the art's perfect for it.
This one here's blurry.
Oh, that was me. That stupid camera, every time I zoom in on something, and then it's like it wants to focus on the wrong thing. Like now it's better, right? Nothing but wants to see my dry hands. Better, yeah. Getting there. It's getting complete. I'll be ready to glue here in no time. What's up, YouTube? Let me get a sneak peek here. I'll be done in a moment. Now on the Pikachu. Color all this in. This is important.
He grabbed the front of my pants, belt and all. and ripped my pants straight down, all the way down the front of my legs. And then he gets his knife and starts cutting off my boots. I just kept thinking, just close your eyes, but I kept, and just let it happen.
She thinks you have a knife. I told you. The bracelet. I collected it. Did you have a knife? There was a knife in the headlock. I saw one big. What was it look like? No, my dad brought it back. That was black. Black handle with black. That's another color. Did you cut her with an eye? No. Did you cut her clothes off? No. Cut her clothes? No. Did she took her clothes off. She there in there? Did the not there while I was there?
He would grab my face like this, and because I would turn my head, and he would make it, open your eyes, look at me. Yeah. So I had to look at him, and I did. He got done doing what he wanted, and he kind of stood over me and looked at me, so, standing over me with a hand on his hip, wiping his sweat away. You get treated like that, and you don't even feel human. I just laid there and kind of wanted just to
This is
seep into the earth,
getting
just
dumb.
take my body
I think I gotta get new
breathe
markers.
new life in something that's much happier than I am at this moment. He was gonna going toward his truck and getting in the keys in his pockets, and I said, okay, he's gonna leave me here buck ass naked. I didn't want him to stay, but I didn't want to be naked out in the woods. I think he started gathering up my clothes, what was left there, because he didn't want to leave anything. My boots and all that stuff he ripped off of me. I just had my jacket on and a little t-shirt top. He goes, now what do I do with you? How do you take me home? He goes, I don't know. Let me tell you, I was talking real fast, real low, and real sweet. Because evidently I wanted to live. I had a brand new baby and a new husband.
Aykroyd agreed to take Marlene home that night. Her jeans had been torn during the rape, so he gave her a pair of dirty pants. On the drive, she did all she could to keep him at ease, knowing a rifle and hunting knife were within easy reach.
I didn't want to make him angry. And he asked me if I'd be his girlfriend. And I looked down and I see that coffee can with the knife in it. I said, yes. I had him take me to my husband's mother's house. Got on the porch and just started pounding on the door. He left immediately, just left. She goes, oh my God, what happened to you? I had bushes, twigs in my hair. She goes, you need to get in the bathtub right now. And I said, no, I can't get in the bathtub right now. I've just been raped. She wanted me to wash him off. No, I wasn't gonna wash him off. I'd hold that shit in until he got it. He will be in trouble once the police come and help me. I did go to the hospital and had a rape kit done. Then I took my shower.
Marlene's rape kit showed vaginal swelling and bruising and abrasions on her back and legs. She went to police and showed them her pants, which had been torn from the crotch to her ankles, her underwear, which had been cut with a knife, and her slashed boots. Despite this physical evidence, police were skeptical. They interviewed
I saw
Marlene
these at
several
Walmart,
times,
forged in fire
focusing on
hose.
minor
At the
inconsistencies in her
Those look
story.
terrible.
Kitchen
They had her
section.
Yeah,
take a
that's funny.
polygraph
I seen. I was like, oh.
and concluded she was not telling the truth. Ultimately, they declined to pursue the case.
That's loud, Daddy.
It's like Pikachu got a birdie.
Jeeps.
Remember that one?
I always thought that that's why these people get paid to protect you. They care. That's what I thought. They care about you. All the system was put in place to protect people, not judge them by who you're married to, what color your skin is. They made me feel like a smelly, drunken native, so I just shrank. It's just another something that I went through in my little life, in my young days. I let my guard down and I was so angry, so angry. If they would only have listened to me. And you know, I feel guilty sometimes. If they would just listen to me, it could have all been avoided. All of it.
Marlene was a vulnerable
Yes, those are
young
real.
woman whose assault by a stranger should have provoked outrage and a
Here's a
demand
card in
for
question.
justice. Instead, her account was disbelieved, deepening her sense of trauma. The implications of law enforcement's failure to believe Marlene and aggressively pursue Aykroyd would be felt along Highway 20 for decades. She was his first known victim. Maybe, if police had listened to her, she would have been his last.
Deputy stopped in and told me that she had went down and brought charges of rape against me, which was a shock. And they said they were investigating it. And I talked with the deputy a couple times, and he said, don't worry about it. He said, he's probably not come to court. All charges was dropped.
They were supposed to put this man somewhere where he could not hurt anyone else. Look what happens. Look what happens. I hear I'm the only freaking survivor.
A lot of people would like to know really what happened, and I think that deep inside somebody probably also is feeling like they'd like to have someone gain the consequences of which they should get over this whole situation.
I think they stopped. She probably
Yeah, those are real Pokemon cards.
Came across her jogging all alone on a road with no traffic, and abducted her, and then killed her and dumped her.
John just told me, said, well, you know I'm the last person I saw her alive.
Same with the stations, only up and back. Farms and truck stops, fireworks stands. I know this road like the back of my
By December of 1978, It had been about a year and a half since John Aykroyd had raped Marlene Gabrielson. He'd suffered no consequences other than a beating by Marlene's husband shortly after the attack. But that winter, he would become intertwined with a different crime. It would follow him for the rest of his life and haunt a quiet community for decades.
There was another case where I had seen this girl, and then all of a sudden she turns up missing. It was a Kate Turner. And I was suspected, under an investigation of that.
In 1978, Kay Turner was 35 years old. She lived with her husband Noel in Eugene and worked as a manager at a local public health agency.
Kay and Noel lived across the street. I didn't get to know them right away, but pretty soon they became like good neighbors. Somewhere in the mid-70s, she started running. A lot of us started running. I mean, we just, it was right around the time of Prefontaine. Kay took it up somewhere in 76, 77.
She didn't just take it up, it became a way of life. Kay ran a marathon in September of 1978 and hadn't let up a few months later when even a cold winter morning wasn't enough to keep her inside. On vacation with her husband and a group of friends at Camp Sherman, a retreat outside of Sisters, she woke up early and headed out on a run.
She was going to run in the morning, and as a matter of fact, had wanted my wife to run with her, but my wife had just taken up running, and I think was a little embarrassed her. You just couldn't run with clearly the distance Kay would want to run. It was fast. It was still a little undecided, but in the morning, my wife at the last minute decided not to go with her.
Kay's exact route isn't known, but she expected it to take about an hour. When she hadn't returned after more than twice that long, her husband and friends began to worry.
I guess I knew Kay too well, and she was too stable and too smart to either get lost or to run away or whatever people were thinking.
They searched, but found no sign of her. Soon, they called the police.
I received a call from the Salem Patrol Office regarding the missing jogger at Camp Sherman. The district attorney in Madras requested that the state police help assist the sheriff's office in investigating the crime. Lieutenant Beneteau, Bob Cooley, and myself was over at Camp Sherman interviewing people regarding this missing Kay Turner. A couple of high school boys said, well, you ought to talk to John Aykroyd. He's seen her since we did. That's when Aykroyd's first name came up.
Tom Hanna, we worked with him at Sandian. He lived in Camp Sherman, and he got off work about the same time John did, I think. And he drove down, and at that back road to get to the store, he saw Aykroyd's pickup in close proximity to where Kay Turner was. Aykroyd was interviewed in January 11th, I think, and he had said, yeah, I was there.
He said he did see her jogging along the road. He wasn't really a suspect, was only just of interest.
We were talking a little about Christmas Eve. You were in that area that morning. Can you tell us about that? How you happened to be there where you had been earlier? Well, like I told you, it's one friend of mine. We wanted to buy some medicine. And he didn't have a gun. I had a 22. They needed the meat, didn't have no money. He was on the range. Did he arrange this the night before or sometime before?
The friend whose family needed food was Roger Dale Beck. Aykroyd's account of that morning shifted over time, but he said that on the day before Christmas, he got off work from an overnight shift at Santiam Junction at around 6:45 a.m. He said he then drove west on Highway 20 to help a disabled motorist, turned around, and made his way to Camp Sherman to see see if there were any deer in the area. There, he saw Kay Turner running for the first time. He then realized he was low on fuel and decided to head to a gas station about 10 miles away. He turned around and passed Kay for the second time. In some versions of his story, he claims he stopped and spoke to her briefly after almost hitting a dog with his truck.
Okay, so she was running, she was running south. Yeah, okay. Okay. And when you came... And you just out there? Yeah. What's your track? Nice pickup. What's your others? Who shot it? I did. One shot, two shots? One shot. What'd you get it on? 3 shots.
Mostly friends of Kay Turner's, and most of them will be from Grants Pass. She grew up down there, of course, and they're friends coming up now to help us out here.
How long will you continue a search like this until he's given up?
Well, in many cases, we probably would have given up some time ago, but in this case, I guess there's enough people who are still interested in wondering what happened that they want to continue.
Kay had visited her parents 2 weeks before her trip to Camp Sherman. In their garage, on a pad of paper she knew her dad would let her find, she wrote, "Hi Dad, I love you, Kay." He didn't come across that note until after she had disappeared. It was the last time her family or friends would ever hear from her. The only signs of her that remained were some running shoe tracks in the mud by the side of a Camp Sherman road.
The tracker had, this is what Nike was, just brand new. And they were all waffle footprints. He had big boot tracks with a heavy guy, and these Nike footprints going up this trail, and from the paved road up to ultimately where the remains were found in that direction.
This guy comes in and says, you know, I found these tracks, and I'm pretty sure they're hers and involved in this.
Tracks of her footprint, or was she dragged, or what?
Well, it was her footprints plus a man's boot, and from the tracks, it appeared that there had been a struggle, and that they'd gone off to the side of the road and then back.
So this is where she would have been taken.
Right out.
Within a week, a few days after she disappeared, they go to her desk, and they find that in the last 6 weeks she spent 2 extended weekends away with two other boyfriends, each of whom was married. So the cops, they got 5 suspects, 5 potential suspects. They got a husband, they got 2 boyfriends, and they got 2 boyfriends' wives. It's hard to find a needle in a haystack, but if you got 5 people that you got names on, you go talk to them.
They searched for her, couldn't find her. The original investigators were convinced the husband did it, so they really missed a lot of things.
Noel Turner, who eventually left Camp Sherman with a car full of unopened Christmas presents for his wife, hadn't known about Kay's affairs. By concentrating on him in those early days of the investigation, police lost valuable time and gave short shrift to other aspects of the case.
Normally, when somebody dumps a body in the woods, they don't go miles out of there. If you're searching for a body, you don't need to go much more than 100 yards off the road. So what they should have done is covered her entire route, 100 yards off the road all the way around. If they'd have really done a good job of the search, they'd have found her. But they were so convinced that the husband had done it that they really didn't do a good enough search. But hindsight's always 20/20, but things yes.
With no body and no leads, the case went cold. Until 8 months later, when John Aykroyd walked into the Camp Sherman store and told the shopkeeper he found a body in the woods.
Nobody had any suspicions particular to him until he walks into the store and says, "I found Pikachu."
He went to the store and reported that he found bones and a pair of yellow jogging shorts. I interviewed him in the car, and his face was perspiring, his forehead was perspiring, and it wasn't overly hot.
And the one thing Clayton always told me is that Johnny, and when he talked to him and told him about the god-awful stench when he found the body, well, all it was weathered white bones. There wouldn't have been any odor involved on it. It would have been as the body would have been decomposing.
I had a very high suspicion that John Aykroyd was doing more than he was telling us.
For anybody that spends any time in the woods, strap clothing is not real concerning. It's not uncommon at all to find clothing in the woods. And so that's kind of hard to believe that he was sure that it was her.
We went back the next day with the scout troop and searched the area. We found the watch, the lower jawbone. I found a hair and in a bird's nest.
I mean, you sit down, he limps, and he looks up there, and he sees this bird's nest. It's not like any bird's nest you see. It's made out of this long blonde hair wrapped up with the twigs and all. And it was right there when she had gone down.
Out hunting, and my dog would run around and started barking all over. So, what did you have? Well, there's some bones. And I went down immediately to the Camp Sherman store. And then I had the woman there call the police, and I took her back out there.
You just went down to the store.
Right.
Told the people you found something.
Right.
What did you tell them? You know?
Probably something like some bones out there. You know, probably human. Pretty sure it's human.
Identify who they might be.
No. I'm not positive. I think the police officer asked me if who it could have been, and I said, well, you know, might be that missing girl.
Referring to
Kate Turner, I think. That's her.
Bodies dumped in the woods are often scattered by animals and ravaged by the elements. The bits of bones Aykroyd found were not obviously human. An avid outdoorsman like Aykroyd would probably have overlooked the scraps of clothing as nothing more than debris, but Aykroyd immediately identified them as Kay's. These peculiarities, combined with the fact that Aykroyd was one of the last people to see Kay alive, made him a prime suspect in her murder.
We got a hold of John and asked him to take a polygraph. He agreed to take the polygraph. So he failed the polygraph. So Bob Cooley and I interviewed him in my office. And he denied everything except that he did see her jogging along the road. The polygraph asked him if he'd ever touched Kay Turner, and he said no. Well, he said he did. Polygraph showed that he did. So we asked him about that touching her. He said, well, he did touch her in February, and she was laying on top of the snow.
During an interrogation after failing the lie detector test, Aykroyd changed his story and made a startling disclosure. He said that he'd first found Kay's body 2 months after her disappearance. His description was detailed and disturbing. noting that her eyes were gone and that animals had obviously been chewing on her body. Her throat had been slashed, and there was a hole in her chest that looked like the exit wound from a bullet. Aykroyd claimed he didn't report the discovery out of fear he would be blamed for Kay's death. The interrogation ended when Aykroyd asked for a lawyer.
Do you think he came back out here in February and just checked on?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I think he was curious how it was going. I would think he described exactly what he saw.
Despite being convinced of Aykroyd's involvement in Kay's murder after the changes to his story, investigators had no hard physical evidence.
If they'd have found her right away, they would have had a lot of evidence. They would have had the boat, and they would have had the tracks, and not only the forensic evidence, but they would have had good, fresh witness information. The sooner you can get there, and the sooner you can find somebody, the more evidence you're going to have to put the whole thing together. The longer it goes, the harder it gets.
You had no evidence to hold him, so you let him go. That was about the end of the case as far as we were concerned. We kept interviewing people that come of interest. It bothered me to know that he did it. I think about it quite often. He made the statement, why did I have to find her? I was the last one to see her alive. He was no doubt in my mind that he was the last person to see her alive.
The suspicion and circumstantial evidence implicating Aykroyd weren't enough for police to arrest him. The investigation stalled, and he continued to live and work at Santiam Junction, roaming Highway 20 alone. For more than a decade, Kay's case remained cold.
There have been times people take people out, kill them, bury them. There's other times where they've taken them out and just throw them on the ground after they got through, and they just leave them.
It didn't surface again until July 10th, 1990. I walk out of court, and there's a note there that says, call Jason Carlisle, Lynn County DA. I call up Jason, and he says, hey, Bill, have you ever heard of John Aykroyd? And I said, yeah, John Aykroyd killed Kay Turner. And he said, well, his stepdaughter just said to investigate. And we've got an active investigation going on.
We had had a two-car head-on fatal accident. A Honda car had hit a semi head-on, and it had a young woman that was killed in the Honda car. And the semi had blocked the road in such a way that the tow trucks couldn't get it out, and they needed a piece of highway equipment. So John showed up at the scene. I deliberately saw to it that none of the normal guys that helped me remove the woman's body from the car. I asked Aykroyd to help me remove her from the car, and I did that because I wanted to see what his response was to handling this woman's body. And I was not prepared for what happened, because as we took her out of the car, he told me that he was surprised at how light she was and that she weighed the exact same amount as Rashonda, his stepdaughter that was missing.
She was missing on July 10th, 1990.
Around 10 o'clock is when she was missing. If I wouldn't have had someone take me home then, I might have came up on something.
It makes me so angry because I feel like she could have been saved.
So who's the most likely suspect? John Arthur Aykroyd.
I know who killed my sister. John Aykroyd is the one who killed my sister.
She's up on that mountain somewhere. She's gotta be.
Same with the stations, only left them burned. Farms and truck stops, fireworks stands.
By 1990, the case of Kay Turner's murder had long been cold. Police strongly suspected that state highway mechanic John Ackroyd had killed her, but lacked evidence to charge him. In the decade plus that had passed, some of the original investigators had retired, witnesses had moved away, and the Turner case had faded into the background as an unsolved murder. But soon, another disappearance would reignite those lingering suspicions and draw
Anybody want some free Pokemon cards? Got 2 left. I'll mail them to you.
a new generation of investigators into Ackroyd's orbit.
See the chance that there's a nice looking girl that was hitting the ball. Take a chance, see nobody else is around, and just walk right up to the car with her. Because 87 pounds is nothing for somebody to kill her. And they, a little girl like that, what fight she gonna put up? It's like, somebody my size, your size, even smaller. You can punch them, and they just don't crumble. You move the hill, they have no power.
In July of 1990, Rachanda Pickle was 13 years old. She loved animals, helping her mother with chores, and bossing around her 14-year-old brother Byron. She lived with her family at Santam Junction, a state highway maintenance yard at the junction of Highway 20 and Highway 22, about 26 miles west of Sisters.
Just a typical 13-year-old, very much into the latest fashion of the time, very into the most top 40 music.
She was wonderful. Couldn't ask for anything sweeter. She was funny, and she was tiny. Rachanda was silly and goofy.
We used to call her Punky Brewster, and she looked exactly like Punky Brewster.
With mom having to be the sole provider of the family, she had boyfriends and husbands, but they were always very short-lived. Me and my sister had to rely on each other.
Santam Junction is a small and remote compound made up of the workers who live there and their families. The nearest towns are Sisters to the east, and Sweet Home, where Byron and Rachanda attended school to the west. It's an isolated spot, but after struggling for years to make ends meet as a single mom, and enduring a string of bad relationships, Linda was willing to accept that isolation in exchange for the stability and security living with Ackroyd seemed to provide.
We grew up very poor. From the outside looking in, it looked like John had a lot of money. He was able to go out and go have pizza, which was stuff we weren't really, when you're poor, you can't really do a lot of that stuff. So I remember meeting John.
And all I had in my life was men cheating on me, stealing from me, and I didn't have anything to steal. And John wasn't that type. And I thought I would be more safe and secure.
It seemed like that he was very stable. I mean, he had a job working for the state highway department. He was a military guy, and he was very good at making relationships very quick.
85 is when me and John got married. And I felt good that I could just my kids not be rats. And I wanted my kids to graduate, where I could have more things than what I did when I was young. And it just backfired,
While living with John might have provided stability for Linda, it was a nightmare for her kids. Ackroyd was often described by those who knew him as unflappable and calm. But behind closed doors, he was violent and volatile.
She used to have her bangs a certain way, same way all the time. She didn't come in with her hair done one morning. I'm like, what's wrong with you? Why didn't you do your hair? And he had ripped a patch of her hair out.
She showed up one day to school. She had a black eye. And she had a really big black eye. And it had a little cut underneath it right here. I asked her, Rachanda, what happened? And she said, my stepdad did this.
Byron always had black eyes or fat lips.
But they were very visibly, obviously abused children.
What was his relationship like with the kids?
Very good. I mean, we went fishing.
Yes. I made it happen. And at the end of this request, I started disciplining the kids. She thought that she had to get on me a couple times, and about her always having to discipline the kids and me not. So she said, "You spend it harder."
I mean, I remember him spanking her over one of those old school wind-up alarm clocks, and it got broke. That beating she got was over the top. It was scary. My mom was yelling at John to stop.
There would be times where, and this was way before she came up missing, there would be times that his eyes would change color and he said, "I want to kill someone." And I would holler and say, "John, you're scaring me."
It was a very fearful environment. When John snapped, it was scary.
Are you the person that basically talking on? No. Pretty calm and cool most of the time. I'd say 98% of the time.
She never wanted school to end. She'd always say, "Oh man, there's only 2 more hours of school. Oh man, there's only an hour left of school."
It wasn't a healthy environment. We definitely knew at that age that not every child went through what we did. Our plan was, I mean, from a very young age, our goal was just to get to 18 or to old enough just to get out.
In her mind, she was going to get away from her mother. She was.
By the end of the school year in 1990, Richanda and Byron had convinced Linda to let them spend part of the summer with their biological father. The kids traveled to Medford to meet up with Stephen Pickle, a man they barely knew.
I think it's part of every child, no matter how good or bad your parents are, that you want to know where you come from. You want to know what type of person they are, and we wanted to have the chance to get to know who our dad was and form our own opinion.
It didn't take long after their arrival for things to get tense. Stephen Pickle confronted the kids about family rumors that Richanda had been sexually abused by both an extended family member and a man who Linda had been with before Ackroyd.
My dad had us both sit down on the couch. I remember sitting there and me and her looking at each other, and it was just like, oh my gosh, we're going to have this conversation. And my dad was livid. He was going to talk about getting an attorney and stuff and getting us both yanked from my mom. I mean, it was underneath her watch and she didn't do anything about it.
Later, Stephen Pickle reacted badly to Richanda and Byron's attempt to join a game of hide-and-seek with neighborhood kids, convinced it was an excuse for the young boys and girls to have sex. Devastated, Richanda demanded to go home to her mother.
My uncle and my aunt were getting ready to come towards Sweet Home for a family reunion, so we went up to my Uncle Bob's place. Dropped my sister off, and we had tea within a couple of weeks, and I mean, it's still ingrained in my head. Seen her in the back of my uncle's Chevy Blazer.
Richanda's ride dropped her off in Sweet Home. She immediately began looking for a way that she wouldn't have to return to Santan Junction alone.
She came to me and asked me if I would go to the junction with her and spend the night. I said I can't. Richanda was adamant about not going up there by herself, and I asked her why. She wouldn't tell me. Because I don't. Will you just please go with me? I said I can't. I would love to, but I can't.
Richanda's classmates, Mandy and Michelle, had been molested in their own home for years. Well before that summer, the sisters had begun to notice familiar signs in Richanda, in addition to her symptoms of physical abuse. She had become depressed, was tired all the time, and had stopped caring as much about her appearance. Their suspicions seemed confirmed when Richanda told Michelle she'd sought help from their school's counselor.
We were in the library, it was a book fair. I just looked up and she was crying. And she said, I'll be back. And she got up and left, came back to the library, I don't know, about 20 minutes later, and she said, you know what you told me that happened to you? And I'm like, yeah, that's happened to me too.
During that time, she got really depressed. She didn't want to go home.
She kept asking, can I spend the night, can I spend the night, can I spend the night? And back then, my parents, we weren't allowed to hardly spend a night with anybody. We pretty much had to beg. So they let her spend the night.
That was a Friday night. A Saturday she stayed, and then that Sunday her mom comes to get her, and Richanda hid in my closet.
Screaming and throwing fits, didn't want to leave.
Throwing clothes over her, throwing shoes, throwing stuff at her mom.
You don't act like that if you just, gonna be sent to your room. You do not act like that. I mean, she was literally terrified.
Don't make me go, I don't want to go, please don't make me go. And I think her mom's like, okay, you can stay with Jennifer. And she left her.
A couple weeks after that, that's when we snuck her. We had our older friends write a note.
And forged my mom's name. We took that note, took it to the school. Richanda walked home with us.
We told her we'd hide her for as long as we could.
So we snuck her through a window, and she stayed the night with us.
What can we do? We were little kids too. We tried. It's pretty bad when kids have to go to that level to do that.
I never felt like any adult who was put into the place of authority to help her ever helped her.
I think that she did try to protect herself, and nobody listened.
Richanda continued trying to spend nights away from home whenever possible, with any friends or relatives who could take her in. While she mostly kept the details of what she was going through to herself, it was clear that it was getting worse.
She started cutting herself. Even in class, she would just take a tack and just cut herself.
And I'd ask her, is she all right? And she was just like, I don't want to be home. What's going on? And she wouldn't, say what the exact reason was. Now getting older, I have my suspicions what those reasons were. When you're constantly in a state of fear all the time, actually analyzing what's going on is, you can't. You're just in a state of fear, you're on eggshells. You just want to have a normal day. Just a normal day is all you want.
I remember her telling me and Mandy a couple things. One time I was doing dishes and he called me over on the couch and just started tickling me.
And it got more aggressive to where he was trying to put his body on top of her. And Richanda had kicked enough somehow and gone away. After that incident is when the other stuff started happening when he was coming into her room.
She never said if anything had happened, but I'm pretty sure it did.
We never felt like she had to because we were kind of going through the same thing at home. But it's not okay for him to go into her room at night. It was never okay. And I always felt like he was raping her.
Had she been abused by anyone? By any of the men in her life that you know of?
Not if I'm aware of. I don't ever recall her
Being invited anyway.
No.
My read of it now is that there was something going on at home between John and Richanda, because when Richanda did confide to Mom what Dad said, how he's gonna get charges filed and stuff. I know my mom told John, and it was the very next day that she was gone.
When Richanda arrived back at Santiam Junction, it hadn't been long since she had confirmed to her biological father that she'd been sexually abused. After that conversation, her father had called Linda with threats to involve the authorities, and Linda had told John. Richanda tried and failed to ensure that she wouldn't be home alone without Byron. Then, Richanda disappeared.
She was home when Mom and Dad left on the tape.
She held back because she asked me, Mom, do you have to go to work? So there was something going on, but I just didn't see it then.
John did not work all day. He ended up coming home early. According to him, he asked her if she wanted to go for a ride with him. She said no.
Regina did everything she could to get away from this man. She was not going to go and spend any alone time with him. There was just no way.
His story was that he just went out on a drive to take pictures of deer.
He never took pictures of deer. That was so far-fetched.
He's driven all the way around there. He has his camera with him, and he comes out on the road and makes sure that the other highway department workers see him, see he has a camera, and he makes a point of, I'm going to establish myself an alibi. I was here at this particular time.
According to him, when he returned, she wasn't home. And that was about noon or 1-ish in the afternoon.
And when he picked me up, he was talking about the Chanda wasn't there. After we got home, got dinner and all this stuff, I think it was around 10 to 5. I said, something's not right, John. I said, she should have been home. Where is she? And then he'd come out and tell me, well, I don't know. I said, well, obvious you should know. You were here with her. I mean, there for the longest time when it was freshly, I just said, why didn't you go home? Why didn't you go home? You could have probably walked in. He wouldn't expect you there. Or whoever it may be. And then I've always said, well, if I would have been there, it would have happened on a different day.
I remember that day. I remember Mom calling saying, have I heard from her Chanda? No. Why? Well, she's not home. And then, automatically, well, you need to go down and check with, the Bridge boys and stuff, see if she's down there. We already did that. I'm like, you guys need to call the cops. Well, John says that we can't call the cops until she's gone for 24 hours and stuff. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you then. She's up there. She's up there.
Okay, how old is she? 13. When was the last time you saw her? It was like 30 yesterday morning. And you're just now calling in? Yeah. Where did you think she was at? Well, I figured she was over to the next door neighbor. Did you check last night? Yeah. Okay, but you weren't concerned then? See, I'm trying to find out why the delay in calling in. Well, I understand that when a child's missing, you've got to wait 24 hours before the people even condition. Oh, no, that's not true. Not with children. Children are not at all with children. Oh. There's no time limit on a child. Oh, okay. I thought maybe there was. No.
And then when Mom called the next day saying the Chanda hadn't made it home, I told my dad, we need to go up there. He's like, no, we're going to play it out. I told him, I'm like, you either taking me home and stuff, or I'm going to the truck stop, and I'm going to find a trucker, and I'm going to hitch a ride back home. And of course, that's what my daddy started yelling at me, and that's when I broke down crying. I told him, something's wrong. Something's not right. And the next day we loaded up, and it was me and Colin who drove up there.
100 searchers from 6 different county law enforcement agencies, including Lane County, spent their day poking through the wilderness near the Hoodoo ski area in search of 13-year-old Rashonda Leah Pickle. In the initial days, air searches of the mostly barren lava lands resulted in nothing. Now, ground crews are concentrating on the heavy underbrush that lines the roadways.
Well, we had all the workers go out and look, I'm telling John, well, you know this area, so tell them, you know.
Did John seem worried about
Well, sort of yes, sort of no, I guess. The thing that was strange about it, we had sex. And when I think back, why would that, I mean, there's a kid missing here.
His wife was kind of in denial. The most chilling thing of that interview with her was when she said that John had no interest in sex at all, except for the day that Rashonda disappeared. And then he was all over her. It was a very telling sign that something got him very excited.
Aykroyd's apparent sexual association with his stepdaughter's disappearance didn't end there. Less than 2 weeks later, searchers found a pair of pants initially thought to be Rachanda's. An investigator noticed the highway worker appeared to get an erection in the shiny clothing, and that a wet spot developed on the front of his pants. For weeks, officials and volunteers continued searching the dense forests and lava fields that surround Santiam Junction.
That was probably one of the most, for this sheriff's office, one of the most labor-intensive searches that had occurred. You have a young girl that's missing in the Santiam Forest or the Willamette Forest, and that touches a lot of people's hearts and so forth. So, there was a lot of man-hours that went into looking for her.
Meanwhile, Jefferson County DA Bill Hanlon, who had inherited the Cold K. Turner case when he took office, convened a task force that would have a single purpose: putting John Aykroyd behind bars.
We had a really strong team. It was the case that needed to get solved.
Hanlon's feeling from the very beginning was, we have a responsibility to get this guy off the street. This has gone on way too long because he was a predator, and he clearly was.
As hope of finding Rachanda alive dimmed, the ongoing searches took on new meaning as members of the task force invited Aykroyd to join them, hoping he might inadvertently reveal information about her location.
John was just happy to be around with all these people, like one of the good old boys, to be involved in the investigation. I think he liked the idea of being involved.
That's fairly common with people like that. They like to be close to the action, and they like to find out what you know.
We were all walking through the woods, and even though we knew it was an exercise in futility, but the whole thing was to see that John was going to volunteer the information that may help us in the case. One of the things we talked about was possibly maybe a log or something might have been placed over top of her body. And to me, that was really weird. I mean, when you think of a loved one disappearing, these are not the kind of scenarios you come up with. Unless you've been there, done that. They did quite a bit more searching different areas where he had said he was living. Of course, it was all dependent on what he had told us. He probably didn't tell them where he lived. They just never found it.
No trace of Rachanda was ever found. Unanswered questions about what really happened, who was to blame, and how things might have turned out differently trouble those affected to this day.
That's probably what haunted me my whole entire life, is looking back going, what did I fail to mention? I remember, conversation with me and my mom yelling at her and stuff. I'm like, the only thing that I could have done to save my sister's life is if I was stepped out and been like, good, I'll be willing to go to a foster home just to get us out of the abusive environment. And of course, my mom was like, there was no abuse. Oh, okay. And that was the only, looking back now, if I would have done that, it probably would have saved her life.
Do you think he killed her? I don't know. I mean, I really don't want to think that way, but then there's the other part of me that wants to think that way. Looking back, I think, how in the world was he capable of doing it? Not really seeing signs.
This guy was a sick individual. He was a master manipulator, you know. I think for anybody that's looking for answers that wants to put blame on somebody, yeah, there's a little bit that I do know my mom, but to say that it's all her fault, no. No, it's John Aykroyd's fault that this happened.
You know, she could just bebop around and just be happy and, you know, until they took it away from her. So they took it all away from her. Not an evil man.
We could have grew up together, you know? You know, she'd be a mother right now. Excuse me. I get to hear this. She doesn't. It just makes me so angry.
That young lady, 13 years old, I'm sure she would have done something really awesome. My granddaughter, who's 13, she has her whole future planned out. Can you imagine that? Makes me wonder about that young lady that lost her life. They should have listened to me.
Despite its best efforts, the task force's attempts to extract information from Aykroyd were going nowhere. His knack for creating reasonable doubt, even while implicating himself, was taking them in circles. They knew that ultimately it would be nearly impossible to prosecute him if they couldn't find Rachanda's body. They also knew that in the vast wilderness surrounding Santam Junction, that might never happen.
He probably learned a lot from the Cajun Turner case. He probably learned a lot about not disclosing where a body is.
We knew all along what we were doing. This wasn't a, maybe this is our guy. We knew that he was the guy. It was very clear. But at the time, it wasn't popular to prosecute without a body. So they shifted the attention to the two Turner case. And it looked like that was our best prospect to get him off the street before he killed somebody else. And that was our primary goal, was to keep from having more victims, which I feel we failed. Because those two young girls out of Newport, I believe, I'm quite convinced, died at his hands.
We'll take a break.
Some of the ODOT employees were sitting around at the lunch table talking about these missing girls, having these putting flyers up, and Aykroyd would walk by and say, "Oh yeah, they're trying to find these murders that we one, they're not even murders yet, and second, they've already put yourself in this movie." And they're trying to blame it on me. It was like trying to build his alibi ahead of time.
When we started this, I thought for sure there's no way it couldn't be two people. But I do think he's a big guy, done it before. And he may have even told them, you know, you need to squeeze into the back of the van. And once you shove one of them in and grab the other and slam the door.
Correct.
Yeah.
Rashada and Keith Turner were the only people that John had been around to disappear.
He worked for ODOT. They were working on Highway 20 a lot back then.
Too many people disappear in that area. Just too much of a coincidence.
We know that John Aykroyd was working in Newport when those girls disappeared.
He comes in way late at night, and he's got blood all over his hands.
It was a right picking for someone who was a predator to be in an area where there's a bunch of sheep.
Same with the
In 1992, investigators were closing in on John Ackroyd, working the cases of both Kay Turner, who had vanished while running in 1978, and Rachanda Pickle, Ackroyd's 13-year-old stepdaughter, who had disappeared in 1990. Ackroyd was the last person known to have seen either one of them alive. But those weren't the only killings along Highway 20 that cast suspicion on Ackroyd.
I'm totally innocent. And I'll say that till the day I die.
What about the other ones?
What other ones?
The other ones?
What you talking about?
Talk about some other people that are dead up in that area.
Oh, now you're trying to lay some others on me.
From the late 70s to the early 90s, Highway 20 between Bend and Newport was John Ackroyd's domain. He roamed the twisting blacktop from behind the wheel of state highway rigs and his own truck, usually alone, a phantom, caught, if at all, as a fleeting blur in the peripheral vision of passing motorists. Ackroyd can account for some of his time. He repaired equipment, helped stranded drivers, and cleared wrecks. He hunted, fished, and visited friends. But he spent long stretches of time alone, and what he was doing then remains the subject of much speculation.
I was convinced early on that we were dealing with a serial killer. And if we really know the truth, I believe he's probably killed more people in Oregon than probably anybody else.
I'm totally convinced John is responsible for a lot more. In my career, I've dealt with serial killers before, and I talked to him, I didn't get him, and I feel John fits in that category.
You wonder, was Ackroyd a serial killer? Well, I mean, he was, by definition, a serial killer. He killed two people, separated by time and space. 12 years between Kay and Rachanda. What happened in between?
Who knows? There could have been, somebody before me, and we just don't know it. And how many do we don't know after that went missing? These are just the ones they know about.
In 2012, two investigators with the Lincoln County DA's office were working on a cold case from 20 years before. Two young women, Melissa Sanders and Sheila Swanson, had disappeared in the spring of 1992 from a campground near Newport. Their bodies had been found several months later in the woods off Highway 20 near Eddyville. No arrests had ever been made. The investigators received a tip from a defense attorney in Bend. He suggested they take a look at someone whose name had come up at the time of the killings, but who had never been questioned. John Arthur Ackroyd.
Melissa lived in Sweet Home. Sheila lived in Lebanon. They were friends. They had planned to go camping with Melissa's family. So they drove over middle of the day, got to the beach in the afternoon, and had supper that night. Everybody went to sleep. And the next morning, the parents and grandparents woke up, and the girls were gone.
We didn't hear anything for like a week, wondering what happened and stuff like that. Why isn't she back? Melissa's mom and dad came over and said they didn't bring my sister back because they supposedly supposed to have been hitchhiking back. Talked to the Lebanon Police Department about it, and they pretty much blew it off like, yeah, that's just Sheila. She's just out running, doing what she wants to do type of deal.
The parents reported them missing after they'd been gone for about a week to 10 days. Not much came up until October of 92, when some hunters were hunting off Highway 20 and came across the bodies of two deceased people. And they were later identified as Melissa and Sheila.
Finding human remains along Highway 20 was nothing new over the years. In 1976, a skull belonging to an unidentified woman.
I can. I just haven't been because I've been trying to concentrate on getting the work done. Plus you can hear that creaky rotating platform here too, probably. Other than that, yeah.
In 1978, the skull of another unidentified woman was found near Snow Creek. Also in 1978, the body of Elizabeth Musler, a young woman who had disappeared from Lebanon, was found in a shallow grave near Green Peter Reservoir. A year before that, personal effects belonging to two missing teenagers.
Right on, what's up? I think my setup's moved a little bit. Oh, you gotta watch it when you pick out razor blades. They'll stab you. Oh, thank you, Gorilla Man. I know the title probably still says Pokemon cards, but that was earlier. You might be able to back it up and take a look. So, I'll grab my headphones. Sorry if it's picking up the creakiness. I guess I should put on some lo-fi, huh? Maybe it don't sound so bad. Connection issues. I got way too much stuff going on. Outro, people.